So good morning.
Good morning.
We are in the third week of Advent. We have lit the pink candle and we are full of joy, right? Mm-hmm. It is Gaudete Sunday. And so you might ask, why do we call it Gaudete? Well, it's easy. It's because we're Episcopalians. And we like words like undercroft and ciborium. Actually, Gaudete is the Latin word for rejoice, and it is the name of the introit that we traditionally sing on this day, and we will sing it today at 11 o'clock. Advent, yes, it is an opportunity to say words like Gaudete and light candles on a wreath, but more importantly, it's the 4 weeks before Christmas that's dedicated to having a pause and a reflection. It's a time of anticipation. We're anticipating the birth of Jesus, and we're anticipating the second coming of Jesus. Advent is the beginning of the church year, so we start the year by remembering the absolute end. We don't think about the end of the world like some do, or like it is portrayed in apocalyptic movies, but rather, we're looking forward to the end of disconnection in the world and in our lives. And instead to the point where God is drawing all things to himself. Doyd introduced us to Teilhard de Chardin's concept of the omega point a few weeks ago. Teilhard taught that at the end of time was actually the culmination of this long process of evolution that has continuously been bringing us to a greater connectiveness, I'm gonna say that again, easy for me to say, been bringing us to a greater connectiveness and to a point of complete unity with God. And that is what we are anticipating. The themes in Advent are all connected, so I want to do a quick review. The first week in Advent was focused on hope. We're hoping for a time where the barriers in the world that separate us are removed. We are hoping for this complete unity that is promised by God. The second week in Advent focused on love, and it makes sense that love would follow hope. So while hope is expectantly waiting for the barriers of disconnection to be removed, love is living in a way that has recognized that those barriers never actually existed. Sometimes seeing past those perceived barriers is really difficult, but it is always the goal. Because when we're able to truly love each other, we experience connection, which gives us joy. And this hope, love, and joy will lead us to peace, which is the last week of Advent. It is when we will experience peace on earth. And we can't get to the peace without the love and the joy of connection. Otherwise, it is a false peace that doesn't last. It is just violence or resentment that is pushed down until it erupts the next time. So, this week is about joy. And it turns out joy is not an easy concept to define. So over the last couple of weeks, I've asked people to define joy. And one person said that it's being happy no matter what's going on. She explained that being happy depends on our happenstance or our happenings, and that joy is more constant and not dependent on anything that's going on in our life. And a couple of people admitted that they couldn't quite define joy. It was more of a you know when you have it kind of thing. And knowing that children are the font of wisdom, I asked my children's sermons kids last week to define joy, and there were lots of good answers. But my favorite was one of my girls, and she said, joy is when you are so happy that your whole body explodes. This seems awesome and awful all at the same time. Martin Buber, who was a 19th century Jewish theologian, had a less visual, but maybe more instructive answer. And he said that joy is the feeling of connection. And that makes sense to me. God is a relational God, and our world was created where relationship is primary. This is not just true for humans, it is literally infused into the fabric of our world. We can look at how the trees talk to each other and how they connect. Under the forest, there is this large network of roots that allows the trees to share chemical signals and nutrients. The entire forest is engaged in a communal support system. And this is true in the cosmos as well. Astronomers have identified this web of interconnected filament. It's made of dark matter and gas that serves as a highway of gravitational interconnection. And this interconnection of filament actually makes up the very structure of our universe. Nature always reminds us that we are part of a larger web of life, where every being and element is connected, contributing to the harmony and the balance of the natural world. But we are no different. We are creatures of connection. From our first breath, we seek to find connection. I used to work in hospitals and was amazed to learn about one of our therapeutic interventions in the NICU. So when babies were born too soon and fighting for their lives, one of the interventions is skin-on-skin contact. The baby wears only a diaper and is placed upright so that the baby's chest is leaning directly against the parent or caregiver's skin. The results are amazing. Skin-on-skin contact has been found to help regulate the body's temperature. It's been found to regulate vital signs, including heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure. And maybe what I like the most is that the skin-on-skin contact has been shown to be a pain reliever. Studies have shown that medical procedures can actually be done on these little bitty babies if they're being held in this deep state of connection, because they have less stress and less pain. The world is made for connection. We are made for connection. Nature knows it, and even a baby's premature body knows it. At Epiphany, we say that relationship is primary. This is because we believe in a relational theology. And we see this in the works of Martin Buber. He teaches that joy is found through connection. His most important book is called I and Thou, and it focused on the nature of relationships and really emphasized that genuine connection and mutual encounters between individuals is what brings us joy. Buber noted that we often approach other people as antagonists or as pawns in our own strategy game. He warned against interacting with people in a way that doesn't fully recognize the divine in them. Rather than seeing others as a him, a them, or an it, we should see them as thou, recognizing the sacredness in each person. It is when we see this sacredness in the other person that we experience meaningful connection. And of course, at Epiphany, we recognize this teaching as seeing the Imago Dei in others and seeing each other soul to soul. So this teaching is not new to us, and we say it almost every week. But what Buber does offer that is new is this idea of what happens between the I and the thou. Buber suggests that the divine is encountered in the space between I and thou. He says that when people connect with each other authentically, they create a space where the presence of God is felt. We've talked about how our life can be placed on the visual of the cross, right? You all remember this. We have our relationship of love with others creates this horizontal crossbar, and our relationship with God creates the vertical beam of the cross. And when I think of what Buber is saying about this created space between us, when we see each other as souls to soul, and in the space that the presence of God is felt, I think it's right there at that intersection where the two beams of the cross cross, our horizontal and vertical life as the intersection of joy. It is the ultimate connection. It is when we are connected to others and to God. And the motion of this relationship is completely interdependent and a self-repeating virtuous cycle. We can see others as souls because of our anchoring in God's relationship to us. As we see and affirm the dignity and worth of others, we invite God into our space, which only allows us to see more fully each other and love one another more, growing in both love of God and love of others. And this is joy, this continuous cycle that just repeats on itself. Last week, I was ordained to the transitional diaconate, and the service was at the cathedral. The pews were full, and a lot of you were there, and thank you for that and for all of the emails and prayers. I had 6 people, including Doit, Kelly Martin, and Susan Pitchford, present me to the bishop. They walked me to the front of the church, where the bishop asked them if they believed that I was qualified for ordination according to our faith and the requirements outlined in the Book of Common Prayer. Thankfully, they said yes. And then after a sermon, the 5 other ordinands and I go to the front of the church. And one by one, the bishop lays hands on us and ordains us to the diaconate. Each of us will become a priest, but this is a holy stop on that journey. I've been asked by several people if I feel different after the ordination. We believe in an ontological change at ordination, meaning that we believe that we are forever changed by the grace of God. It is an unrepeatable sacrament. So how did it feel? I was not quite sure how to answer this question. People asked me, sort of looking out of the side of their eye or their brow a bit furrowed. The question felt like it was trying to see into some mystical reality. Was there lightning in your soul? Was it mystical? What did it feel like? And the answer is that it was. It can only be described as pure joy. And I don't think it gets more mystical than that. It was full joy because people from Epiphany were there. I felt connected to all the people that were there, even if I had never seen them before. The bishop has this way of looking into your heart that says, I see and I celebrate you. My wife and my 2 daughters put my deacon stole on me. And the bishop told us that we do this in front of the whole church, in front of the whole congregation, because it symbolizes the whole church vesting us in our ministry. So this day was a culmination of what started as a quiet voice and a personal prayer to connecting with family, the parish, other ordinands, and the whole church. People told me that I looked radiant, and I was. There is no other way to describe it than to say that it was pure joy radiating in, through, and out of me. This is considered the season of joy. It is a season to gather and to connect. We connect with family and even strangers. And sometimes this gathering can feel nightmarish because Uncle Jerry. Enough said. But this is not about repressing emotions or accepting bad behavior. And by bad behavior, I mean cheering for Texas at a bowl game. But it is a time that we are called to remember that we are waiting for Christ's second coming, where we are called to that place of unity, where we are all completely connected, and that the non-essentials don't matter, and they are all non-essentials. My prayer for the season is that you feel the gravitational pull to the unity point, that you are able to avoid the non-essentials and be drawn into the love where we can experience true joy.